Assembly.
Yes, sir. Hello, everybody. Today we'll start another very important chapter of business ethics and CSR. We'll be discussing on CSR reporting process and auditing. Whatever activities we do, if we don't keep the record of the activities, if we don't audit it, whatever activities we do will go in vain. So for that purpose, we go for a record keeping process, and that is called as the reporting process. In this unit, we'll discuss about what basically is CSR reporting, how the CSR reporting is being done, the process of CSR reporting, what are the different important types of tools and techniques used for CSR reporting. We'll discuss the different important CSR reporting practices by leading companies that are being adopted by the leading companies. We'll discuss CSR reporting under Companies Act 2013. We'll also discuss about business responsibility reporting. What is business responsibility reporting? How it is being done. We'll discuss about integrating SDGs into corporate reporting. We'll discuss about the need and scope of CSR audit. We'll discuss the audit procedure, and we'll also talk about the selection of the audit personnel. Starting with what basically is CSR and what is corporate sustainability. When I talk about CSR, as we have already discussed in our previous classes, it refers to the corporate initiatives that is aimed at contributing towards the societal development, that is typically through the social welfare activities and environmental protection, as is being outlined in the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act 2013. Then what is corporate sustainability? It involves aligning all the business processes with sustainable and responsible practices, thus incorporating sustainability into business value and supply chain. Now, what basically is the difference between then corporate sustainability and CSR? CSR focuses on the specific social and the environmental activities, whereas corporate sustainability encompasses all the business processes, all the activities that is relating to the businesses, integrating them into sustainable process. So when we CSR is concentrating only on social and environmental activities, corporate sustainability is concentrating on all the business activities that integrates them into sustainable practices. CSR is one of the component of corporate sustainability, and it is often viewed as a philanthropy or charity by the companies. But here, corporate sustainability is a broader concept that is including CSR and also covers, that is not only including CSR, but also covers the economic, the environmental responsibilities across the businesses. What is then CSR under the Companies Act 2013? Now, according to Companies Act 2013, CSR is mandatory to be implemented in the companies, and CSR has become mandatory for certain companies from April 1st, 2014. So companies now need to allocate a portion of their profit to the activities that is being included in the Schedule 7 of the Act that we have already discussed in our previous classes. The focus area of CSR is on social development initiatives, environmental protection activities, etc. Now, when we are talking about CSR reporting and sustainability, we are talking about CSR reporting that is more aligned with the social welfare administration in India. It focuses on the compliance that is regulating the Companies Act 2013. Now, CSR reporting measures the impact of the social and the environmental outcomes. When we talk about corporate sustainability reporting, it is a business management function. It integrates the sustainability across the entire business value chain. It addresses the responsibility of the businesses towards its stakeholders, and that is also including the community at large. Now, how the CSR has come into inception? In the previous classes also we discussed. Let us just throw some light. So before the Companies Act 2013 was being implemented, CSR activities were basically considered as the voluntary and philanthropic in nature. That is focusing only on the infrastructures such as schools, health shelters, and orphanages. After 2013, CSR became a regulatory requirement for the corporates. So companies must, it was being said that companies must assess the impact of CSR activities on the stakeholders and ensure there is alignment with the national development goals. Now, what is the role of the stakeholders? Stakeholders expect that there is increased amount of accountability in the CSR. If at all there is any investment in the CSR, it should be accountable. And CSR must now demonstrate tangible social dividends both from the corporations and also from the nation. Now, what is this NVGs? That is National Voluntary Guidelines. Now, these are basically introduced to outline the broader responsibilities of the business towards all its stakeholders and beyond its shareholders. So, CSR is a vital part of corporate sustainability, but the CSR is a vital part of corporate sustainability, and corporate sustainability is a much wider in scope, has a much wider in scope of that is relating to business practices. Now, when we are talking about reporting, CSR reporting, both CSR and corporate sustainability reporting are essential for the transparency of the businesses, accountability, and also it is it is required for aligning our business operations with the SDGs. Now, coming to what basically is the concept of what is CSR reporting and what is the rationale, let us first understand the importance of sustainability. When we're talking about businesses and sustainability, in today's era, sustainability is just a key of balancing between the social, economic, and environmental needs. That is the SDGs. That is the social, environment, and economical needs. So business must also align their strategies with the sustainable practices so that there is sustainability of the businesses, that is ensuring a long-term survival of the business. Now, what are the different important initiatives taken by the global and the national? Now, United Nations agencies, national governments, civil societies are emphasizing on the sustainability as the core agenda in their businesses. Now, what are the challenges of the irresponsible resource utilization? Impact on the future generations and business sustainability. So there should not be overuse of resources that threatens our planet and the future business opportunities. So what is the solution that the businesses can adopt? One is the judicial use of resources, that is using the resources responsibly, recycling and reusing the waste, adopting circular economy principle in the business, sustainable business model, aligning the production, supply chain, and value chain with sustainability standards. Now, when we are integrating this sustainability in the business practices, we need to satisfy the stakeholders' expectations. What is satisfying the stakeholder expectation? One is the consumer. That is, we need to increase the demand for responsibly produced products and services. Preference, what are the investors doing? The preference for the businesses must meet the sustainability benchmarks. When we come to supply chain, it is suggesting that large companies demand sustainable practices from their suppliers. Now, what are the different important frameworks and the guidelines? Now, the systematic approaches, that is including CSR frameworks and sustainability indices, are needed to meet the evolving expectations. Now coming to what basically is CSR and how this brand value enhancement is done. Now we need to link between sustainability and the brand value. How? By adopting sustainability, one boosts the brand's reputation as a responsible entity, and it also attracts environmentally conscious consumers and investors. Now we can go for understanding the CSR and brand value enhancement through business growth via responsible branding. So responsible brands, they gain a competitive advantage, attracting more number of customers and investors. There are different important case studies we can discuss in India that shows how businesses improves its profits through sustainable practices or sustainable strategies. One is the real world example. The Indian companies that have integrated into sustainability as their core strategy are contributing positively towards the business growth. So result is there is improved profit, there is better stakeholder management, engagement, and there is enhanced reputation of the company. Now, now coming to CSR reporting, that is communicating the brand's commitment, we understand why the CSR reporting matters. It matters because the CSR reporting communicates the company's sustainable practices to all the stakeholders. There is transparency also maintained in the reporting process that builds the trust, support branding efforts, and it also fosters stakeholders' loyalty. Now, what is the impact on the stakeholder? This reporting of CSR or CSR reporting efforts ensures that the stakeholders are aware of the company's contribution towards the sustainability, thus enhancing the brand value of the company, and it is also contributing towards the business growth. Now, how we can say that CSR and sustainability are the key to the business growth? Now, they are essential because they are essential for the business competitiveness in the modern market. And CSR reporting efforts is not just about compliance. It is considered as a powerful tool for enhancing the brand value and also driving long-term business successes. So in general, we can say that sustainable business practices that is supported by effective CSR reporting are crucial for enhancing the brand value, for driving the business growth, and also maintaining a competitive advantage in the today's market. So when we are talking about CSR reporting, it is basically referring to the disclosures of a company's social, economic, and environmental activities and their impact on the society. It is also highlighting the company's efforts towards sustainability and social responsibility. So it is very much important to disclose this because it is the first step in demonstrating a company's commitment towards sustainability. Now, what is the role of this transparency in CSR? When we have discussed about transparency, when we are talking about transparency, it helps the company to tell their sustainability story. It helps the company to check what they are doing, how they are doing. It builds the stakeholders' trust and enhances corporate reputation. Now, what is the impact of transparency on corporate performance? Now, by disclosing these CSR activities, companies, they drive internal improvements and also measure their impact. So one cannot manage what we can measure. So unless and until we can measure the activities that we are doing, we will not be in a position to manage our activities well. So what is the power? How this power of measurement can be helpful in CSR? So companies must measure their social, economic, and environmental impact so in order to manage them effectively, and it also includes assessing both the negative impact and the positive initiatives. So using the CSR reporting also, we can track the progress of the company. So it provides a framework for the continuous effort of the company in sustainability efforts. Next, we'll discuss that CSR reporting can be considered as a communication tool. That is, we are in a position, in communication tool means we are in a position to connect with our people who are responsible to our businesses. One is the stakeholder. So CSR reports communicate a company's sustainability efforts to different stakeholder groups, like say we have the customers, we have the investors, we have the regulators, and the communities. Next is we go for winning the stakeholder trust, because if transparency will be there, trust will be there. So transparency through reporting helps to earn the trust and support of the stakeholders, thus strengthening the brand loyalty and engagement. Now, there are different important elements of effective CSR reporting. The first one here, the key components of CSR reports include, first one is the environmental impact, that is the actions that are being taken to reduce the ecological footprints, example, the use of the resources and the emissions from the companies. Social impact, the contributions to the societal development, for example, different community programs that are being conducted by the corporates, the employee welfare that is being provided to the employee. Next is the economic impact, that is we discuss on the financial performance in relation to the sustainability goals. There are different important frameworks for CSR reporting. One is the global standard, that is the GRI and the SDGs, and the local regulations, which for example we have the Companies Act 2013. Now CSR reporting is also used for business growth. It enhances the business corporate reputation and strengthens the market position. It attracts responsible investors and consumers who prioritize on sustainability. It also links the performance of the company with transparency. So measuring and reporting on sustainability leads to better business performance and risk management. Now, what is the role of the CSR in building corporate accountability? The CSR reporting ensures corporate accountability. It ensures that the businesses are held accountable for their social, economic and environmental impact. It aligns the corporate goals with the sustainability. That is, it aligns a company's objectives with global sustainability efforts and stakeholder expectations. Now comes the concept how this process of CSR reporting is done. We understood that CSR reporting is very much required for the sustainability of the businesses, and if we go for CSR reporting, there is a transparency maintained. This transparency will strengthen our position in the market. Now, how the CSR reporting is being done? First and foremost is the purpose of the checklist. What are the checklist? We should ensure the key aspects are considered before starting a report preparation. There should be focus on objectives, resources, stakeholder identification, and method definition. Now, what is the objective of the report? The first is we need to define the objective. When we are talking about defining the objective, we are talking about the legal compliance which is being provided in the Companies Act 2013. Next is the voluntary standard that are being laid down in the GRI and United Nations Global Compact. For example, the CSR reports that are being done as per the business responsibility reporting format, that is called as the BRR. Sustainability reporting based on the national guidelines for business responsibilities. National guidelines for business responsibility. Now, one has to have a clear objective. What are these clear objectives? It should streamline the reporting process and it should ensure that all the required information is being included in it. Then only you can go for a transparent process and a thorough process. Next is the resources and the organizational embedding. Now, when we are talking about allocating the resources, we appoint a dedicated team of interdisciplinary group for this purpose, and we ensure that adequate budget and manpower are used. The different important themes that are being included in this for CSR, the one is the tailored to the company's operations and the key to have leadership involved in setting up the frameworks. Now, who are the target groups? The target groups can be the stakeholders. That is, we need to identify who are our stakeholders. It can be our customers, our employees, our investors, our community, and the regulators. Now, when we are talking about the dialogue with the stakeholders, we need to understand their expectations and needs. So this can again we'll go with the success of the report. That is, the report's effectiveness relies on how well it is being communicated with the intended audience. It begins with the most significant stakeholder of the company and expands its experience and expand as experiences gain. Next is method definition. When we are how we are going to define the reporting method, that is, we need to choose from the existing framework and guidelines. There are popular standards and frameworks maintained, like we have the Global Reporting Initiative, that is the GRI, that is widely recognized sustainability reporting framework. Next is the United Nations Global Compact, that is aligning our businesses with the principles in human rights, labor and environment. AA 1000, that is the stakeholder engagement guidelines. ISO 26000, that is the social responsibility standards. Next is there should be consistency and comparability, that is we need to follow recognized framework to ensure our report is comparable with the other companies. Next is we need to ensure quality and comparability. That is, we need to, when we are going for this final preparations, we use a standardized method to ensure that there is high quality reporting. It allows for comparison with our businesses across the same or different industries. There are different important reporting tools and techniques. We need to understand the tools and techniques that is being used for the corporate sustainability reporting, and that is essential for effective disclosure. The different important areas included here, like say we have the frameworks, we have the standards, we have the ratings or the indices of the corporate sustainability, so on and so forth. When we are discussing about the framework of reporting, we need to first understand what basically is reporting framework. So reporting framework is nothing but the guide, the framework that guides the companies in developing a comprehensive sustainability report. What are the key frameworks? One is Global Reporting Initiative, GRI. It is used most widely used framework for sustainability reporting. Sigma project, it integrates sustainability into core business processes. DPSIR framework, it focuses on drivers, pressures, state impact and response that is related to sustainability. Carbon disclosure project, it focuses on carbon transparency in carbon emissions in the environment. World Business Council for Sustainable Development, it helps the company align with the SDGs. Greenhouse Protocol, GHG protocol, it is a global standard for measuring and managing the GHG emissions. SEBI framework, it is Indian specific framework for sustainability reporting. Now, what are the different important standards that are being used for this reporting? Let us first understand what are the reporting standards. These are basically providing detailed guidelines on the sustainability practices, and it helps the companies adopt universally accepted policies. It is it takes into consideration sector specific standards. When we are talking about sector specific standards, the standards are tailored with the industries such as the textiles, automobiles, agro-business and electronics. There are different important commonly used sustainability standards, like say we have the AA 1000 that is focusing on the stakeholder engagement and accountability. SA 8000, it is a global standard for social accountability. ISO 14001, it is used for the environmental management system. ISO 9001, it is used for the quality management system. OHSAS is 18001 is for the occupational health and safety. EMAS is eco management and audit scheme. ISO 26000, it is providing guidance on social responsibility. Private and voluntary sustainability standards, it is industry specific and often voluntary standards. It includes often voluntary standards. There are different important ratings and indices in corporate sustainability reporting. Now, why we need these ratings and indices? Because it provides the third party to evaluate if the company's sustainability performance is up to the mark or not. There are different important ratings and indices used for this reporting. One is the KLD, that is it measures the social responsibility for socially conscious investing. EIRIS, it is called as the Ethical Investment Research Services for Sustainable Investment. SAM, Sustainable Asset Management, it helps the companies align with the sustainability based practices. Asian Sustainability Rating, ASR, it tracks the sustainability in Asian companies. Dow Jones Sustainability Index, that is DJSI, it benchmarks global corporate sustainability. MCSI ESG indices, it evaluates the environmental, social, that is the ESG factors. Okay, that is called as the environmental, social, and governance factors. FTSE 4 Good Index, it tracks the performance of the companies, demonstrating the strong ESG practices. Bloomberg ESG disclosure score, it provides the investor with the data on the company's ESG disclosure. True cost, it measures the environmental impact on the companies. Boston Consulting Group, that is the BCG, it offers high insights into the corporate sustainability performance. Now, coming to the reflections on CSR policy, it is basically a mandate that is required for a company to formulate a CSR policy. There are different important key inclusions in the policy. One is the list of the projects or the programs. That is, we need to understand what the companies plan to implement. Then we go for execution mechanism, how the initiatives will be carried out. Next is we go for monitoring and evaluation. We need to track the progress and the impact. So availability is it must be available to on the company's website. That these are again being reflected on the CSR committee. Now there is a CSR committee mandate, that is eligible companies must form a CSR committee. Now what are the responsibilities of the CSR committee? They formulate and recommend CSR policy to the board. When we go for this, they also go for recommending the different CSR activities and the budget. There is the team, they decide, the committee decide on the projects and the expenditure, and then they monitor. Then we go for monitoring the CSR policy. That is, it should be periodically reviewed. The implementation should be periodically reviewed, and this impact must be calculated. So how can we do it? We can do it through discussion on CSR in director's report. That is, we need to go for understanding how can we do it, how can we get it. Now we need to understand the requirement of the director's report. That is, the CSR related details must be disclosed in the director's report. So what are the key details? One is the composition of the CSR committee, who is on the committee. Company CSR policy and initiatives, this policy developed and the CSR activities undertaken during the year should be identified. Annual CSR report, it specifies about the projects and the compliance with the act. There are different important global CSR reporting parameters also. That is, there are 5 global areas of CSR disclosure. One is the environment, how the companies are addressing the environmental impact. Second is the labor practices and decent work, how we discuss on the rights of the employees, working conditions of the employees, etc. Next is the society, that is engagement with an impact on the community. Human rights, ensuring respect for the human rights in operations. Product responsibility, that is the accountability for the quality and the safety of the products. So there are different important examples where the CSR reporting practices are being implemented. One is the Philips. It uses an integrated reporting format that is combining both the financial and the non-financial information. JK Group, it follows ISO 26000, that is focusing on the social responsibility. Mahindra Group, it adopts global reporting initiative, that is, it is the framework for the detailed sustainability reporting. Now coming to the CSR reporting according to the Act, that is the Companies Act 2013. Now Companies Act 2013 is very, very important. Now when we are talking about this, we discussed that CSR reporting became mandatory in 2015 under the Companies Act 2013. Now companies need to follow what it says, the company need to follow a format for reporting their CSR activities. There are different important key components of the CSR reporting format. One is what is the purpose of the reporting format. That is, we need to ensure there is a transparency and the accountability in the CSR activities undertaken. It allows the stakeholders to understand a company's social responsibility commitment and its spend. Now, when we are talking about the CSR policy outline, we overview the CSR projects on programs or program that is planned for this financial year. So companies must provide a link to their CSR policy and the project details on the website. Next is going for framing the CSR committee. The composition of the CSR committee basically entails that the details of the CSR committee should be there, including its member and role. The committee is responsible for planning, executing, and then monitoring of the CSR activities. Now we need to discuss about the average net profit. When we are talking about the average net profit for which we are liable to undertake the CSR activities, we go for the concept that the average net profit should be taken for the last 3 financial years. So the companies must report their average net profit for the last 3 financial years, and the figure forms the base for calculating the CSR spending. There is a prescribed CSR expenditure. Now it is being calculated in the term that 2% of the average net profit. Average net profit we are calculating from the previous 3 years, and allocation is done wherein we go for companies must allocate this amount towards the CSR activities. Now coming to the details of the how we are going to spend this CSR, how we can show it. Now the breakdown of the CSR spending for the financial year. What we do, we go for calculating the total spending, CSR spending for the year. Companies must disclose the total amount spent on CSR. Companies must also disclose the total amount unspent that is being allocated for CSR, and it should report any amount that remains unspent from the CSR fund, and the details a detailed table that is showing how the CSR funds were spent across the projects, locations, and sectors are to be maintained. This is the table how we can go for keeping the data on how these things are being done. We need to go for identifying the CSR project, which project is being done, sector in which the project is covered, projects, what are the projects of the firm, that is it for local area or for other area. We need to specify the state, we need to specify the district, we need to specify where the projects are being undertaken. We need to also find out the amount outlay for that particular project. We need to also identify how much is being spent. Then we go for calculating the cumulative expenditure for the reporting period, and then finally we calculate the amount spent, that is direct or through implementing agencies, because it may so happen that sometimes the implementing agencies they go for spending, sometimes the company directly they go for spending. So, CSR reporting under the Companies Act ensures contributing transparently to the social and environmental welfare. The 2022 amendment further strengthens the framework and makes it mandatory for the companies to provide a detailed breakdown of their CSR spending. So, next is there is disclosure of non-spending. When we go for non-spending, we need to disclose it. If the company fails to spend the required 2% of the average net profit, the board's report must provide reasons why it is not being spent. There is a transparency also need to be maintained if any shortfall in CSR spending is seen. Now, what is the role of the committee? The committee provides a responsibility statement confirming that implementation of the CSR policy in the compliance with the CSR objectives. So the policy is being monitored to ensure there is alignment with the goals. For example, we take into consideration composition of CSR committee in board's report. The board report must disclose the composition of the CSR committee. This is mandatory as per subsection 3 of section 134 of the Companies Act 2013, and it is in compliance with section 135(5). It is CSR spending requirement according to section 135(5). It mandates that the companies must spend 2% of their average profit. When we are talking about the average profit, we are calculating from the past 3 years on CSR activities. If the company fails to meet the requirement, then it should provide specific reason why it could not meet. Now coming to the annual CSR report, it is being prescribed. There is a prescribed CSR reporting format according to Rule 8.1 of the company's rules 2014. It prescribes that the companies must include an annual report on CSR in the board's room outlining the CSR activities and expenditures. When we are talking about CSR reporting for foreign companies, it will be different. So as per section 381, foreign companies must provide a CSR annexer in their balance sheet when filing under section 1. So it also includes the CSR related disclosures, the unspent amount, and when we are talking about the unspent amount, the Companies Act requires disclosure of any unspent amount in the board report, and the unspent amounts are not included in the cost statement as CSR related income, and expenses are considered non-cost items. Now coming to, we discussed in our previous area that we go for business responsibility reporting. Now there are different important elements that we have to keep in our mind when we go for business responsibility reporting. Now there are different important key points that we need to take into consideration. The first one is the company's name and ownership, management structure, location and operations, that is both national and international, products and services offered, and we will also discuss about the markets. When we are talking about the economic and the financial data, there are different important data required. The data in terms of sales, net profit, taxes to paid. We also discuss, we also gather the data in terms of total assets and market capitalization. We also collect the data in as per the number of employees, and we collect the data on the management's commitment statement to ESG guidelines. There is additional consideration in part A, that is the reporting period and the framework that is being used, significant risk to the stakeholders, goals and targets for improving the performance during the reporting period, etc. Now reporting on performance indicators is also done. So this is the part B, wherein the reporting on the performance indicator is done. Reporting on the performance indicator is done. The objective is basic performance indicators that is being reported on key principles should ensure transparency. Now there are different important principles. The principle one is that is being used. One is the ethics, transparency and accountability. We discuss here on the government structure. We discuss on the board oversight. We discuss on the committees that are being formed. We also discuss the process such that we can avoid the conflict. We discuss on the code of conduct, the assessment of business responsibility performance, so on and so forth. Second important principle is the product life cycle sustainability. There are different important key statements included. One is the use of recyclable raw materials. Second is adoption of energy efficient technology. Third is respect for the traditional knowledge and sustainable practices in the value chain. Next is when we discuss about the employees' well-being, we discuss on the total employees, including contractors, women employees and persons with disabilities, training programs organized, and wage compliance and employee grievances. Third important principle is the well-being of the employees. It identifies what is the total number of employees, including the contractors, or how many number of women employees are involved, and how many persons with disabilities are working, the different types of training programs that are being offered to the employees. Next is we discuss on the wage compliance and the employee grievances. Fourth principle is stakeholder engagement. We go for understanding the engagement process. We go for identification of the stakeholders and the formal dialogue on significant issues undertaken with the key groups. Next is we have the human rights. That is, we discuss on the policy of the human rights, and we also discuss on the details of companies that are being related to human rights. Principle 6 is the environmental performance. When we talk about the environmental performance, we talk about the recycled materials. We talk about energy consumption and savings. We talk about renewable energy use. We talk about water consumption and recycling. Then we have and next is emissions and effluent discharges. Principle number 7 is policy advocacy. The significant policy advocacy efforts that includes proper platforms used. That includes that includes platforms used. Principle 8 is inclusive growth, that is the community development. We need to identify the investments and the impact on the marginalized groups. We also go for understanding different innovative practices, that is enhancing access to resources for disadvantaged groups. Next is the customer value. We need to understand the customer health and safety, provide information through product labeling. We need to go for customer complaints, that is on sorry, safety, disposal and labeling. Now, part C comprises of the negative consequences and the future goals. When we are talking about the negative consequences and the future goal, the objective is there should be a transparency on the negative impact and goals for future improvement. Now, what are the negative consequences? Any material or significant negative consequences of the business operations has to be taken. That is all social, environmental, and economic. Next is the goals and the targets, that is the future focus. The goals and the targets for improving the social, environmental, economic responsibilities in the next reporting period is to be done. Now we discuss how these SDGs could be integrated into corporate reporting. Now, we have already discussed that there is a need for sustainable business practices. It can be done. It can be done by aligning CSR with the national and global goals, sustainable development goals, and nationally determined contributions. That is NDCs, benefiting of linking CSR to broader objectives for societal well-being. Next is we need to discuss on the economic opportunities, that is the insights from Better Business, Better World report, wherein the potential economic price is $1 trillion for Indian private sector by 2030. Now there is creation of there will be creation of 73 million new jobs by 2030 through sustainable practices. What is the benefit of aligning the CSR with the SDGs and the NDCs? Now, there is a direct contribution to the national and the global development targets. There is enhanced corporate reputation that is leading to brand loyalty. There is a competitive advantage in the mature global market. Now, for example, we can take the example from the corporates. A major corporate's threefold increase in sales after integrating the CSR. There is a major corporate's threefold increase in sales after integrating the CSR with the SDGs. And there is we can discuss on the importance of redesigning the CSR strategy such that we can align ourselves with the global goals. So there is interconnection, that is the synergy and interconnection between CSR, SDG and NDCs. That is, a synergy is being maintained among CSR provision, SDGs and NDCs. There is focus on measurable impacts and targets, that is 169 targets of SDGs. There is broader horizon of impact with existing budgets. Now, there are different important challenges for implementation of CSR. There are first and very important is the dilemmas that is being faced by the corporates, wherein there is a confusion regarding various codes, disciplines, standards that are to be used in the company. There is a need for clarity on which sources to adopt for the CSR strategy. Now, when we are talking about the existing framework and standards, we can take into consideration ISO 26000, United Nations Global Compact, GRI, KPMG, Center for Responsible Business, so on and so forth. When we are aligning this CSR with the SDGs, there are different important strategies involved. One is the development of the CSR, SDG, NDCs link. The linkage toolkit. The objective of the toolkit is to address the key components of the relevant CSR sources, enhance the impact and the returns while managing the corporate branding, and facilitating alignment with the SDGs and the NDCs. Now, when we are talking about this collaboration, we discuss on the partnership that is developed in association with the Aston Business School and Aston India Center for Applied Research. For example, consultations with the key stakeholders for effective key toolkit development. Now, what are the components of this toolkit? We take into consideration the government initiatives. We take into consideration the policies, the schemes, the budget allocated. Now, we also take into consideration the baseline target for SDGs. We also take into consideration the corporate contribution for achieving and complementing these strategies. Now, coming to the significance of these toolkits, there is a great significance. Now, we can go for attaining competitive advantage in our businesses through it. There is enhanced cooperation with the government and the stakeholders. The contributions towards achieving globally recognized. There is a contribution towards achieving globally recognized sustainable development goals. That is the SDGs. Now, coming to the CSR audit, when we are talking about CSR audit, we talk about documenting whatever transactions are being done. It is a systematic, documented, periodic evaluation of CSR performance. Its purpose is to validate the processes, compliance, and performance. Now we can generate this social value for stakeholders through independent evaluation of CSR practices, and we should ensure that the compliance with policies, systems, and regulatory requirements is done. There is enhancement in efficiency and efficacy of CSR projects. There is reduction in social risk and liability. Now, what are the benefits of CSR audit? First is it assures conformance to the statutory requirement. It improves the project monitoring and evaluation. It provides insight into the data management and record keeping. So, and it also facilitates informed management decision, which is very important. Now, what is the scope? The scope is there is quantitative impact assessment of CSR activities. We can evaluate the physical and the social changes over time. So there are different important factors in influencing this impact. One is the efficiency of the community development activities is being calculated. The number of beneficiary reached could be identified. Infrastructure improvements made can be also identified. Now, coming to the audit for this financial resources and utilization, the focus area will be on project delivery within the budget and timeline and assessment of project quality. Next is relation to financial audit. There is integration with corporate financial audit processes. When I talk about the compliance audit, we talk about ensuring adherence to the Companies Act and CSR policies. We examine the integration of CSR into business processes, and the compliance is with the section 135 of the Companies Act 2030. How can we understand the effectiveness of the CSR policy? We can understand, we can identify the effectiveness by evaluating the desired results from the CSR policy implemented. Next is we can also understand it by recommendations for necessary changes to improve the outcomes of the CSR policy. Next, we go for identification and formulation of CSR projects. It can be done through evaluation of project identification and formulation process, and then alignment or aligning our national goals with the SDGs. How are we going for this resource deployment? We go for assessment of resource allocated to achieve the objectives. The different important institutional setup and human resources. When we go for HR audit, we go for assessment of staff suitability for the training needs. We also go for effective utilization of the human resources by implementing agencies. There is impact on resource consumption, wherein the data on effective resource use and waste minimization can be calculated. Then we go for data management. When we go for data management, we go for understanding the key element. One is what is that adequate management system, data management system or not. If the communication is effective or not. Communication is effective with whom? With the stakeholders and the beneficiaries. Next is we need to understand if there is stakeholder importance. It is important because there is engaging community, there is engagement of communities with the prime stakeholders, and it ensures CSR projects genuinely are benefiting the stakeholders of the company. Next is there are risks for poor engagement, wherein the potential distortion of the project objectives can be identified. Next, we go how this process of audit, CSR audit, is being done. First and very important thing is indicate if the fund used is accountable or not. Fix the accountability for a specific task. Provide feedback on the achieved targets. Identify the different unmet targets. Assess the resource utilization. Define different clear indicators for the future intervention. Highlight the process shortcomings. Recommend if changes to strategies could be done and the processes. Then after that we can guide for the future policy development. There are different important regulatory and the structure of audit. First is the frequency, that is regular intervals for internal audit has to be done. There should be random external audits for objectivity. Now we need to identify the audit team. When we are talking about the audit team, we need to identify the distinct group of people for different types of audits to maintain objectivity. The different important action plans that are being maintained by this group. First is one need to understand the identify the reporting guidelines, and the reporting guidelines is basically basing on facts that is being supported by documentary evidence. That is very important. Action plans has to be maintained for different important corrective measures if taken with responsibilities and deadline. Now only reporting will not done or the action plan will not solve our purpose. We have to go for follow-up. How we can go for follow-up? By preparing a structured questionnaire such that consistency is maintained. We can again go for consultation for action plan for development. We won't take that particular action plan, or we don't take only that particular questionnaire and go for analysis. It has to be changed periodically. Next is we go for financial audit. It ensures deployment of the financial resources as per the corporate financial processes. Now there is we go for this we go for integration. That is part of the overall financial audit of the company. Then we go for compliance audit for the Companies Act. It is basically basing on the PDCA. PDCA is plan, do, check, act, quality concept. What is its objective? To ensure that the projects are planned, projects are implemented, projects are monitored, and projects are also reviewed effectively. When we are talking about the Compliance Act for the Companies Act, the focus area is on we need to identify the project, we need to formulate the project, we need to go for approval of the project, we need to go for reporting, and then finally closure. So it is the compliance with the section 135 and schedule 7 of the Companies Act. Now, when we are talking about the effectiveness audit of the CSR policy, we talk about dynamic nature of the policy, we talk about evaluation. When we talk about project identification and formulation audit, we go for reviewing the companies, that is components, that is identifying the gap. We also go for understanding how this long-term goal is aligned with the national and the sustainable development goals. Next, we go for developing the different important indicators for the project objectives. That is, we go for institutional setup audit through understanding that who are the people involved, that is the human resources. We go for auditing the data management. Now when we are going for auditing the data management, we go for understanding the data integrity part, we go for understanding the data verification part, and then we go for stakeholder engagement audit. That is also very important. For that is being done through consultative process and evaluation. We also go for outcome audit overview. That is being done. Why this outcome audit is being done? In order to assess the qualitative and the quantitative impact of the CSR program. It also determines the changes in the community development indicators. We go for formulation of audit procedures. And when we are going for this formulation of audit procedures, we go for variability of procedures that depends on company maturity, size, and CSR budget. We also go for scope design, that is companies design, audit, scope, and processes based on their needs. Then they also implement this ICAI guidelines, which is the indicative list of the point that should be covered under the CSR audit. This is how the things are being done in the CSR reporting. In the next class, we'll discuss on the next aspect of CSR. Thank you.